Could I have the panelists come up, please? Did you give them slides? Your slides?
Was I going to go through that?
No, I don't think so. I just saw somebody put the screen down.
No, I didn't plan to do that.
We look better with a white background. Makes you look fresher. Hi.
Could you take your seats, please? Just waiting for one more panelist.
Screen for show. It's got 2 or 3 slides in this show. Thank you very much.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our economic panel from our earlier discussions and from the obvious facts. Investment in the Arctic is absolutely sine qua non of the kind of sustainable development that we need up there. It's been an extremely useful session in our private session this morning, and I think a number of interesting observations and conclusions came out of it as far as investment and sustainable development and the operation of where companies can make money, large companies, small companies, medium-sized companies, companies that involve Aboriginal groups in all ways. I'm going to start down with Mead, actually, at your end of the table with your presentation. Mead is somebody I've known for years and has been a real thought leader on all sorts of activities in the development of the Arctic, particularly the North American Arctic. Mead, I'll just, without further ado, I'll ask you to speak.
Well, John, thank you. And I just want to say that I consider this as a co-chair of the advisory board for the Polar program here at Wilson. I consider this a red letter date to get this program started. And John, thanks for your initiative in bringing the premiers here and the Alaskans and the Greenland minister, because we have lots to talk about. What I want to do just very quickly is talk about investment, and I just need to start off with a small disclaimer. When I left public office in 2014, I joined a private equity company called PT Capital, and they tell me under securities rules I'm not supposed to advertise for PT Capital, so I'm not advertising for PT Capital. But what we do is we, like many other private equity firms around the world, run around with a tin cup, invite investment funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds to invest, and essentially my job is to try to bring investment into the Arctic. And people say, what do you do in the Arctic? And I always run off this list of 6 things where we feed the world with our fish, and we have 2 of the largest fisheries in the world. We fuel the world with oil fields that are actually tremendous producing oil fields in Russia, in Alaska, in Canada, in Norway, and others which may come along in Iceland and Greenland as an example. We have lots of renewable energy that, if there were power connections, could also help fuel the world. We help provision the world with our mines, and we have some of the largest mines, and you heard the minister from Greenland talk about new mines that may be going in there, in Nunavut, There's a large iron ore mine, which could be the largest iron ore mine in the world going in. In Alaska, we have the largest or lead zinc mine in the world. Russia, the largest nickel mine in the world. We help protect the world. And when we talked about the base at Thule, just as an example, it is radars in places like Thule in northern and western Alaska that protect 750 million people from nuclear annihilation, at least by letting us know if there is an attack coming. And the proliferation of missiles is such that there could be missiles coming from many other places. We connect the world, initially in aviation, soon significantly in shipping, and often actually going back to the time of before the Alaska Purchase and, from Russia, even in telecommunication. And finally, I'd like to think that with the tourism we have, with the significant cultures we have, and with the natural beauty we have, we inspire the world. And these are the economic activities that are drivers in almost all parts of the Arctic, and we want to do more of it. Just statistically, our Arctic economies are estimated to grow to over $550 billion by 2030, and growth will be driven by demand for resources, tech advances, opening of sea routes, and trade. And my point here, this is a chart that Scott Meinard at Guggenheim helped compile. We were working together at the World Economic Forum. The estimate is that the Arctic will be a huge sponge for global investment for some time to come. And so when the question was asked earlier, is it good or not good to have China investing in the Arctic, the fact is that we are all in the hunt for global capital. And each of these jurisdictions, whether it's Alaska, the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, Greenland, we're all in the hunt, and global capital comes when you have economic activity that can produce a return to capital. In our case, we have a significant issue where we need to educate the world about the Arctic. I remember talking to somebody at the Yale Investment Fund. I'm an alumnus of that school. I thought they taught us something. And this kid said to me, no, we're not going to invest in the Arctic. It's too controversial. Well, I'm sorry. The 4.5 million people who live there don't think it's controversial to live there. And we actually are there making a living and trying to attract investment and produce and pull our weight in the world and help the world eat. We do get to explain the Arctic has rule of law. We do get to explain that the growth rates in the Arctic have actually been better than their host countries. We do get to explain that we've got a good workforce and that the college and the training programs are very good. And we most especially are proud to explain that we are bringing up local capability to invest in the Arctic in many different ways. When the Alaska Native Land Claims Act was settled in 1971, none of us would have expected that today $12 billion is the economic turnover of the Alaska Native corporations in Alaska. You see significant capability to invest not only by our Native corporations, but by the coastal community groups who we set up in the early 1990s to take a piece of the fish quota. And again, they are now the largest investors in the North Pacific and Bering Sea fisheries. Nobody would have thought that overflight fees would be such a significant contributor of cash in the Arctic regions. 10,000 people today